Hello, I'm Cecilia Louie of Paper Zen. Would you like to make a 3D monogram letter to customize a card just like this? I always get so many wows from my friends and family, and it's getting to the point where it's expected that I keep topping my last card. It's really not that hard to make this, and you can use any of your favorite scrapbook cardstock in your stash. In this video, I'll also be showing how to make 3D paper roses out of Daiso paper. And if you already know how to do all that, look in the notes below to skip to the part where I'll show you how to make these clean-cut corners out of your quilling strips. You can use this technique to frame any card you have and give it a really polished, upscale look. Visit my blog so you can download a free template, and I'll leave a link in the notes below. You can substitute this letter from any letter in my book, Quilling Letters. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified when I publish any new videos. I've pre-cut the letter R 4 times, once out of scrapbook cardstock and 3 times out of white cardstock. Of course, it's much easier and precise using an electric cutting machine, but if you watch my letter J video, you'll see that it can be done by hand as well. So you really don't need to be exact with your glue, but where I do suggest that you use all the precision technique that you have is when you're lining up all these edges. So I always use my table surface because that's obviously flat, and I use the fingertips to help align these other edges. So this way you don't have any of the surfaces of these edges kind of shifting around while the glue dries. Now, this cardstock is just something I happen to have on hand, but you can actually use, I don't know about you, but I always keep some scrap things lying around even if I'm not going to use it. And you can't tell, but it was actually cut from leftover cardstock that I had used for another project. And I had printed on one corner of it, and the other corner, it hadn't been touched at all, so it was perfect for just using it up. So because it's all going to get covered up, it doesn't matter if there's something printed on here. And now obviously we're going to do the last layer, which is the scrapbook cardstock. Now that my layers are dry, I'm going to outline the letter R using the same scrapbook cardstock that I cut the face out of. And just like the letter J, we're just going to outline the letter as it is rather than use measurements from my book, which don't take into account the thickness of your paper and any other variances that you have cutting by hand or even by machine. So I'm going to first put a bead of glue down this large edge first. And I'm just going to smear this glue because I don't want the glue to ooze out onto the front. So I'd rather just control that result. So I happen to want my dots pointing on the bottom when I actually glue to my surface. And I'm going to allow this edge to overhang just a little bit beyond the corner of my R. I'm just going to use my card to press against the side here to make sure the glue has a good hold. So we get a nice clean finish like that. Now, to deal with this end here, sometimes I just find the reason why I do this is sometimes, even though I have the best of intentions, my strip might shove over a little bit just as I went to glue it. So I just found I prefer it to do it like this. I just use this edge and line it up against the bottom part of the R and snip. And that way I know it's pretty exact. Now, to get a good fold right here, I'm going to use my needle tool and score right along that area. And I'm going to fold in the opposite direction just because I want to get a really, for one thing, I want my fingers to feel for these edges and make sure I'm not folding any other degree other than 90. And then I just find it gives me a sharp crease rather than something rounded, I guess. And then we'll just keep going along this edge. And when you smear, take care not to smear onto the front because we don't want any of the glue to show. And yet you need to make sure that the glue does coat the whole surface as well. And if you don't have a card like this, I think a box of Frisket will do. Something to do like small but has like a 90-degree angle to it. And of course, when it gets kind of tight like it is in here, it's better to use something that has, I guess, a smaller area that you can get in there. And unfortunately, because of this angle, it makes it a little challenging to get the cardstock in place. But, you know, I'm sure you guys are a talented bunch and are going to manage just fine. Now, I wouldn't worry. See how it's pulling away from there? Not to worry. I mean, we can always come back later. And actually, it comes in handy right now because I need some maneuverability to get in there with the next fold. I really like this pair of tweezers because unlike my fine tip ones, this one has not a fine, well, not overly fine. Basically, when I press any seams together, it'll almost like pinch it for me because of the way that these teeth come together. So in this case, because I want my fold to be crisp, I'll get in there with my tweezer and make it do my work for me. So that's why I don't mind a little bit of, I guess, movement here. But always tilt your head from this angle here and make sure that this edge is sitting on the table. And then with your fingers, press down on these layers because sometimes it can lift up from the table just ever so slightly, and you don't get such a perfect surface on the front. So I'm just going to finish off with that glue there. And again, I'm just using my needle tool to just make sure I smear that glue exactly where I want it to go. And press it in. Now at home you might have, you know, a bit more, you're probably not as rushed as I am to provide a tutorial. So I'm sure you'll take more time in letting every edge set before you go on to the next edge. So forgive my rush here. I really like to burnish my surfaces and feel for anything that might be off. And again, check the front to make sure that it looks pretty on that side, because that's the side that's going to be showing to the world. And then also, scrapbook paper is printed. So they print this green on this white. And when you cut it, you can see here the core of it is white. And so generally I chose a lighter color paper for making this, you know, example, because I don't want a white line to show against something dark. So if you're going to choose a dark line, maybe you can hide it using an ink pad and just kind of ink over the surface, like over the edges, to hide that white core if that bothers you. So again, I'm just going to score along that corner. Just give it a good crimp. And then because I have the flexibility right now, I'm just going to get the next fold in place. And you can imagine how much more difficult it's going to be once I secure that. So I think I'm just going to, well, I'll leave this part. See how it's sitting on top of that edge? I'm just going to bend it down a little, just because the closer that this surface is to the table surface, then the truer, I guess, the next fold is going to be for me. So maybe actually I'll bend it this way. So this is probably the trickiest part of the letter. You just take your time with it. So because all these edges are not glued down, I'm probably not going to get a more exact kind of measurement in there. So I'm going to secure these and make sure it's going to give me a truer reading for my measurement. And again, just be careful as you smear so that you don't get the front of it yucky, because that's no fun. And because this card can't get into such a small space, I'm going to use the side of my tweezers. And just remember, tilt your head towards the right and just take a look from the side on what you're doing. And once in a while, check it up from the front. Make sure that it looks as good as you're hoping. So that's a good join. And remember, you don't want too much glue, because anything that seeps out, you're probably not going to see it until you flip it over to this side. And then, you know, you don't want to have any glue surprises. So again, I'm just going to score as much as I can in midair. It's hard to get a sharp crease right around here, but this is what quillers are known for, right? Very agile and nimble fingers. Remember, smear kind of downward because we don't want to smear the glue towards the front. And just like we did the last time, we're just going to use the edge of the scissor here to line up against this edge of the R as we snip. Nice and clean. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here. I'm just going to pick it up with my tool, my needle tool, and just brush up against that corner, so that when these two touch, they're going to join and give it a seamless corner. And that's how we get the 3D letter R. Okay, now to do the inside shape. So to do that, I'm just going to rest this piece inside, and using my tweezer, you have to get quite above your work and just kind of crimp where you need to fold. And of course, check it to make sure that it matches. Now for this piece, what I tend to do is just kind of eyeball where it needs to be in terms of length and trim off that excess just so that you're not dealing with so much. And just kind of guide it in terms of the curve. And by the way, folks, I just want you to know, I saved this just for you. These are all my previous attempts to get it just right. So don't feel bad if you have to redo it again and again, okay? Because this is not a simple piece to add on as it was for the outside. This is, you know, a little more challenging. So I tend to cut it a little longer just because these other ones that I cut were a little shorter. So it's kind of like the Goldilocks syndrome. And somehow, again for this video, it came out perfect. So go figure. Maybe it's because you guys are watching me. You guys are bringing me good luck. And after you've watched this video, I'm hoping, could you guys leave me some comments, because I'd love to hear from you to know what would you like me to see me do next. Or let me know how, you know, these ideas are working in your own project. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lettering project. Maybe you used it for another quilling project and you happen to think, oh, maybe this might work on something else that you're working on. It's kind of fun to know what people are doing. Because sometimes it's just, you know, me and my craft room, so it's kind of nice to know other people are out there, and it's kind of cool to watch all these things unfold and how it might help you. And I'm just going to run a bead of glue on that corner just so they join nicely. I chose Daiso paper to make the roses because I like the weight of this paper. It's thin, so it's malleable, but it also has enough weight to hold my folds crisply. All the colors go well together, and as you can see, I've used the same green for the leaves, the sprigs, and the frame. It just makes everything cohesive. If you don't know what Daiso paper is, I'll leave a link in the top right hand corner to explain a bit more in another video. So we're going to start by making a sharp crease, kind of like that in your corner, and fold it again. And as you do a third one, what we're going to do is start creating the middle of the rose right there. Do you see it forming? Now that we've got a nice little turn in there, I'm going to use this finger and make a fold like a 45 right there. And I'm going to crease it sharply. Now as I roll, do you see how this corner piece is starting to come close to the center? I'm going to use my fingernail again and just kind of crease to get that crease started and create a fold right there. So this part here, this corner that I've created, that's going to end up looking like a petal in the rose. So I'm going to pinch with my fingernail and just help that crease come about. And as I'm turning this piece here, do you see how this edge here, I'm keeping close to where I'm gripping. So in other words, I'm pushing this part close to the middle and allowing the bud to fall open toward the outside. So again, I'm going to pinch there with my fingernail and go down. Now, you can certainly keep going like this. You can see how the rose is coming about. And the thing is, sometimes these folds, they start lining up with one another. And I'll be honest with you, this is at this point where I tend to actually put a little dab of glue right there, because if I love what I'm seeing right now and I happen to like where that petal is ending up, I want to secure it, because if you don't, I find it can actually tornado out, or I have to keep turning it this way, that way at the end to make sure I get the kind of, you know, the look that I want with my rose. So I just find that it's just easier to just dab a little glue and secure it. You don't have to keep dabbing all the way, but you see how this one happens to fall just, you know, offset from this other petal. A lot of times, somehow when I'm shooting these videos, they seem to turn out, and it's lucky for me, but quite a lot of times this next one will fall right behind that guy, and it just doesn't look as, you know, natural, I guess. So I guess lucky for me, it's offset this time. But just in case, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue and secure it in place. Now, the width of this strip that I'm doing right now is about 3/8 of an inch. I'll be completely honest with you, I just kind of eyeballed it. I just cut with my ruler and I didn't measure it whatsoever. And I basically, to do my card, I made some smaller, some wider, and I don't tend to measure because I like the fact that they're all different from one another. And you just keep going around till we get to the end of the strip. And I'll secure that again. Now this tail piece, I just tend to tuck it up and hide it against that last flap. So just add a little bit of glue to make sure it doesn't all come undone. And then you just have to hold it in place, but it finishes up nicely. And if you want to, I mean, I haven't let this dry fully yet, but if you want to use the needle tool to just kind of gently fold back these petals, just kind of opens up the rose a little bit more. And depending on the length of sheet that you're using, you're going to create different types of roses for your card. So some of them are a little longer, so this one's more of like a tight bud, but you get the picture. So to do the leaf here, all I did was take the green sheet and arbitrarily I just, I guess that's about 1/2 inch, and I folded that in half. And just quickly did a half moon shape, and once you open it up, you've got an instant leaf to tuck in anywhere you want. And these guys, I'm sure you've seen in some previous videos how to easily make these kind of spirals. Now let me show you how to make these neat and tidy corners. When you go to my blog and download this template, you'll see that it's for 5.5 inches and for 5 inches. That's referring to the size of these squares. And I chose this because it's really easy to get this from an 8.5 sheet of paper. I just cut off this amount. So we have 5.5 here, you fold it in half, and you have a 5.5 inch card. So I've taken my template and I've cut the inside 5 inch square out, and I'm just going to go to a sunny window and tape with adhesive tape the card against my template. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I have taped my card to the back of my template against the sunny window. I've used some removable tape here, and I'm deliberately putting it on the back because we need to put the frame on the front of the card, so we don't want that tape to get in the way. Now with the remaining part of the R, you can see how I've separated the two, and you see how I have the tail end of the bottom part of the R remaining on here? That was on purpose. I want it like that, okay? We're going to keep this and put it aside for now. I'm going to use this sheet to glue on, because why not? It's a scrap piece of paper. So what we're trying to do is just glue from about here to here on this strip. Okay, so this strip just extends past my frame just a little bit, which happens to be this exact length. So in other words, when I go to glue, just glue from the middle area. Don't go edge to edge. And when I glue, try not to go left or right. We just want to go straight, because if you go left or right, you end up digging some of the glue onto the front of this strip, and that's not what we want. Okay, so now I can remove the template. See how this is sticking up? That's on purpose, don't worry, that's the way it's supposed to be. So this is how we get the precision part of what we're doing in here. I'm going to use the tip of my X-Acto knife to help guide my ruler and butt up against exactly where I'm positioning it. So I'm basically using my knife to put it into that crosshair there and then use my ruler to push up against it. And you can feel it. I guess I'm tending to feel it more than see it. I'm going to put my thumb right on those two strips and cut through the two layers of paper. Now, this might scare some of you, but I guess with practice, I've come to feel when I'm cutting through paper. So just as I cut through that one, I'm feeling for this second one. And that is how you get precise corners. So now it's all downhill from here. We just add a little bit of glue and voila. People are going to wonder, did you cut that with a cutting machine? And you can say, yes, they're my hands. And they'll wonder, how did you get it so exact? Well, folks, that's how you get it so exact. Okay, so I've trimmed off the excess and I still have yet to glue these corners down, but you get the idea. Do you remember that piece that we had from before where the bottom part of the R is still showing on that baseline? I've got some removable tape here and I'm just going to stick that onto my frame. And as you can see, that's going to guide me for the placement of the letter R. Simple, right? So I'm going to do what I normally do and put a bead of glue down and smear it. Now it doesn't bother me that this glue puddle isn't large enough to encompass the entire letter because I'll just move it around and make sure it's all coated. And this work surface is actually a laminate, so the glue can rub off easily. So, you know, if you're using a proper wood desk or what have you, just remember to protect your surface before doing what I'm doing. So we've got this to guide us. And as I'm putting pressure down, I'm actually putting pressure just here and lifting a little bit with my thumb. That's so that I have this part secure, and now I can lift this template out of the way and press down fully. Hope that makes sense. Now just add your roses, and I tend to face them every which direction, not just all front, because roses don't grow like that. They grow more naturally. So, and after you figure out the position that you want, you just start adding all your little embellishments to make it, you know, more fun and lively. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make your monogram letter card, and I can't wait to hear what it's like for you to give it to your loved ones. Thanks for watching. Want to be the first to know when I put out my latest video tutorial? Subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you give it 2 thumbs up or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you.